So thank you for inviting me here. I want to acknowledge something I saw in the chat just because it dovetails into what I'm going to talk about, which is students and mental health. And I'm reading the chat that says my friend lost his daughter. She committed suicide because of the grade. And I just want to acknowledge the tragedy of that, and that our students can be under such unbearable pressure. My specific presentation is on self-care and how to incentivize it as a way of empowering our students. When I first presented a portion of this back in ACERT in 2018, I showed how to, again, participate in class and gave a link to the counseling center. Post-COVID, the game changed, and I realized that that was not enough. And so I'm going to just show you some changes that I made to my Blackboard in terms of ways that I want to help teach students how to integrate self-care. I don't think it's enough just to say, go to counseling, here are all these resources. I feel like students are already overwhelmed, especially first years, with bureaucracy. I teach 120, but I also teach digital storytelling. And so I'm going to, because I know we're running out of time, I'm going to share my screen and just kind of show you ways that if you are thinking about this idea of how to wrap the language of self-care into your syllabus. The first thing you can see is in my announcements, I have self-care for extra credit points, and I post daily, weekly things. I'll explain a little bit more about this in a second, but basically, if they go to anything that helps them socially, culturally, psychologically, they get an extra point. This includes office hours. This includes going to the librarian. Again, I feel like if they are navigating classes, working part-time, having responsibilities at home, that one more thing feels impossible. I've had students actually go to these things and they tell me how much it helps them and they appreciate them, and they show me a picture of it, and I say, you get a point. In my course information, by the way, this is what I used to start doing, was this well-being policy. Any student has difficulty affording groceries or accessing sufficient food to eat every day, or who lacks a safe and stable place to live and believes this may affect their performance, and the course is urged to contact me so we can figure out the resources. The first time I did that, one of my students who's sitting in the front row came to me after class and was like, I don't have enough to eat every day. And me just going, okay, there's a whole bunch of sort of nuances behind even that statement that we sort of have to navigate. And so we got her, into counseling. We got her, found out ways to get some food. And of course, I have this counseling center here, but that wasn't enough still. So I also made this how to get involved, because so many of my students, especially once we got back, they said, you know what, the clubs aren't meeting. I'm not finding connection here. We are a commuter school. I asked how many students, like, do you have any friends here? They're like, I really don't. Learning is meant to be in community, and a lot of first-year students feel very lost. And so, as you can see here, I put self-care and advocacy. And, this means just, showing them how to change their name in CUNY first, especially if they have a preferred name. And I say you get 1 extra credit point for any event intended. And part of this is, the Hunter CAP, the AANAPSI Hunter Bridge Project, which I took a summer seminar on. And again, after having them write, essays about identity and self-care, realizing how many of them just didn't even have the language of self-care. And so going to the counseling center, the writing center, Hunter Library, I think we need to incentivize self-care. I think we need to incentivize it. I feel like we need to put it in the front of the class. I make announcements about self-care almost every 3 weeks. I especially do it anytime there's the time change. And I've created a narrative around it. So I have announcements, I have it, in my syllabus about the goodwill, and then I have this whole extra folder devoted to their self-care. So I give space, I give physical space for this rhetoric of like, we care about you and we I want you to feel safe in this space. And if you don't even have the language for that yet, I'm going to make sure that you are rewarded for that work. I think we forget how much work it is to just even find time for counseling, to find time to do all these other things. I also want to add that this also can play into retention. Again, I teach the 120 classes, the first years. And again, if we want students to stay, if we want them to stay and also be healthy, so many students oftentimes, yes, I still can, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna look at the chat. The more supported they feel, and the more we can give them a roadmap to care in whatever ways, and this is something that every teacher can do, no matter who you are, you can add spaces in your syllabus that gives that rhetorical room to have these conversations. And I think in a place like CUNY, we are still in a pandemic. We still have not dealt with the PTSD. We still have to deal with, again, the trauma. And, you know, we are not therapists, right? But we definitely can be better at the way we direct students to get self-care and do it in a very positive, nurturing. And also, we've got to be sort of like an ad campaign. Like, it takes a long time, right?